No memory gaps. No getting lost. Just a moment, so small you could blink and miss it. But years later, you'd look back and realize it was the first crack. The brain doesn't always shout when it's in trouble. Sometimes it whispers. And if you don't listen closely, you won't hear it at all. Let's uncover the early signs almost everyone misses until it's too late. 1. Where did I put that? It started with tiny things for Gloria, 69. Misplaced glasses, missing keys, her favorite pen. At first, she laughed it off. Later, she blamed her husband. But by the time she was diagnosed with early-stage dementia, the pattern was undeniable. Research shows that when the hippocampus, the memory hub of the brain, begins to weaken, people don't just lose items. They lose the memory of ever touching them. This creates a confusing gap that feels frustrating, even frightening. When someone keeps asking, "Where did I put it?" again and again, it's more than just forgetfulness. It's a missing link in the chain of memory. 2. Why is everyone mumbling? For Harold, 75, conversations started sounding like a rush of words. Even though his hearing tests were perfect, he struggled to follow group discussions. It wasn't his ears, it was his brain. Studies show that early cognitive decline can impair the brain's ability to process speech at normal speed. It's called auditory comprehension delay. When the brain can't keep up with language, even familiar voices feel overwhelming. If someone says, "You're all talking too fast," pay attention. It might not be impatience. It might be an early sign of trouble. 3. Nobody told me that. Sandra, 70, often accused her family of keeping her out of the loop. She insisted they hadn't mentioned birthdays, appointments, or holidays. But they had. In truth, her brain had failed to record the conversations. In early dementia, the brain doesn't just misplace memories, it fails to create them. Without a memory trace, the person genuinely believes they were never informed. This creates conflict, mistrust, and heartache, all because the mind silently skipped a beat. 4. That's not what I said. Lawrence, 73, began misusing words, mixing up names, leaving sentences hanging. When corrected, he got angry, insisting he'd spoken perfectly. But the truth? His language center was quietly breaking down. In early cognitive decline, the brain often struggles with word retrieval and sentence formation. What's scary is they don't realize it's happening. When someone frequently insists you misunderstood them, it might not be stubbornness. It could be an early fracture in communication itself. 5. I feel off. 3 years before her diagnosis, Deborah, 68, confessed something odd to her daughter. "I'm fine, but I feel off." No missed bills, no wandering, just a subtle sense that something wasn't right. This is called subjective cognitive decline, when people feel the change before it's measurable on tests. Experts now believe it can appear years before clinical symptoms. When someone says, "I just don't feel like myself," listen carefully. It could be the brain whispering for help. 6. I don't care anymore. Once lively and passionate Jack, 71, seemed to lose interest in everything he once loved. At first, his family thought it was depression, but therapy and medication didn't help. It was something deeper, frontal lobe deterioration. When motivation and emotional expression fade, it can be one of the earliest signs of certain dementias, like frontotemporal dementia. A person may not seem sad. They may seem hollow. When someone's spark dims without explanation, don't assume it's just mood. 7. Stop changing things. Mild changes in routine, like moving a chair or buying a different brand of coffee, set off James, 74. He wasn't always this rigid, but slowly, change became unbearable. Loss of cognitive flexibility is a subtle early warning that the brain is losing its ability to adapt. If a once easygoing person suddenly clings to sameness, listen closely. It might not just be preference. It might be fear. 8. They're lying to me. Even before his diagnosis of Lewy body dementia, Robert, 77, grew suspicious. He believed his daughter was hiding things. He accused neighbors of plotting against him. But none of it was true. Early dementia can distort reality, turning kindness into betrayal in the mind's eye. Paranoia isn't always a late-stage symptom. Sometimes it's the very first crack in perception. 9. You're doing this to me on purpose. Before her diagnosis, Evelyn, 68, lashed out at her family over minor mistakes. Forgetting where she put the remote wasn't her fault. It was their conspiracy. Psychologists call this defensive blame. When the brain falters and fear creeps in, anger often follows. Blame becomes a shield against the terror of losing control. It's not personality, it's protection. And if you catch it early, you have a chance to protect them back. Final thought. They don't always forget first. Sometimes the first signs are hidden in their words, their fears, their frustrations. If you hear them, really hear them, you might be able to step in while there's still time. Stay with us for our next video on 7 simple habits to keep your brain sharp after 60. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. Stay strong, stay aware, stay connected.